5, calling the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Item 2 is roll call. All aldermen are present. Item 3, Pledge of Allegiance and silent prayer in lieu of invocation. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. Item 4, presentation of the Police Department Officer of the Year Award. Chief Hassens.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to briefly kind of explain what we do for that every year. We started it last year. We reach out to the department and ask for nominations of fellow officers for Officer of the Year. This year we got several nominations. Then we take those nominations, redact the names, we present that to the Police and Fire Commission, and then they choose from our nominations so that, there's no appearances of favoritism or anything like that. This year's Officer of the Year is Nicholas Brockman. So have him come up, and then Chief come up. He's going to read the first here.
As of November 19, 2024, Officer Brockman made 51 drug-related arrests and 16 OWI arrests. Both of these numbers are the most of any WRPD officer or detective. Officer Brockman has also worked the most amount of overtime as any WRPD officer or detective, which has reduced the strain on officers having to get forced to work overtime. Officer Brockman went to training to become a field training officer, as this was a big need of the department. He is currently the only night shift FTO. Officer Brockman also went to advanced breaching training to better the capabilities of the Special Response Team. As a member of the Special Response Team, Officer Brockman deployed to assist in 2 officer-involved shootings. Officer Brockman volunteered to assist for the week at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Officer Brockman spearheaded the renovation of the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department weight room. This has improved department morale and drastically improved officer wellness and fitness within the police department. Officer Brockman shows determination and knowledge of various laws when searching and investigating crimes, specifically as it pertains to drug interdiction and traffic enforcement. Officer Brockman is willing to work extra shifts, which would normally require officers already working to be ordered over longer. Officer Brockman is courteous and fair when interacting with the public. Officer Brockman shows great teamwork as well as knowledge of the job. Officer Brockman portrays a very active work ethic, which leads to many arrests. Officer Brockman has been the embodiment of what a patrol officer should strive to be. He is consistently motivated, proactive, and always seeking to remove drugs and impaired drivers from our city. Officer Brockman is a great resource for questions while on patrol. He is willing to teach and also provide leadership to anyone at the department. He shares the workload by taking overtime and reports when other officers are busy. Congratulations, Officer Brockman, for the 2024 Officer of the Year.
Speech? No? Okay. No speech. Thank you, guys.
All right. Item 5, reading of the minutes of the previous meeting held January 21st, 2025 in attachment 1. Council, what are your wishes? I get a motion by Veneman, second by Penscover. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 6, consider for approval the extension of the Advanced Disposal Industrial Service Agreement for leachate disposal as recommended by the Wastewater Treatment Commission at its meeting on February 12, 2025, and see it in attachment 2. Council, what are your wishes? Mr. Delaney?
I didn't see any numbers as far, it's an agreement, but there's no dollar figure with this, so I was just wondering if that was, if there is a dollar figure. I mean, normally agreements would have some sort of dollar figure.
So this is just an extension of what the agreement is that they already have. So there's not really a dollar amount because it depends on what their load is and stuff. So I can show you those loading numbers. But it's nothing different than what we have. It's just that their agreement ran out for their DNR purposes. So they need to prove that they're bringing it somewhere. So it's more for them than it is for us. But it's just a 1-year extension at this point.
Thank you.
Mr. Austin?
Derek, can you kind of provide a little bit of history with the leachate and what has happened in the last few years with that and the fees imposed?
Yeah, so last year when we were working on their contract, we added some extra fees regarding some of the problems that are related to taking in leachate, as far as the staining of the wastewater that affects our disinfection. So we spend a lot more money on our disinfection equipment. So that last agreement we had with them last year, when we redid that contract, we added a bunch of different fees for things like that we spend extra money on and extra time at the plant. So the disinfection is one of them. Cleaning some of the collection system is another fee that we have. And what else? Some more testing, because in the future we're going to have different PFAS limits. So they have to do a testing procedure just like we do, so we can compare their numbers. So in the future, if we have a PFAS limit, we can kind of go back and compare it to the landfill, because that's our primary source for that. So that's the majority of the changes.
Any other questions? What are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
I get a motion by Austin, second by Veneman. Any further conversation? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 7, consider for adoption an ordinance revising hauled waste charges in Chapter 8 of the Municipal Code as recommended by the Wastewater Treatment Commission at its meeting on February 12, 2025. See an attachment number 3. Mr. Delaney?
Okay, on this one, it says per 100 or 1,000 gallons. So is it divided up? Like if somebody brings in looks like a holding tank for a trailer.
Yeah, it's basically like, instead of saying $45 per thousand, it'd be like 4.5 cents per gallon. So it's broken up depending on what their load is.
There is no minimum though. It's just, I mean, if they got 20 gallons, they pay.
Yep. Yeah. There's no minimum. They do have some finance charges just for us to do the billing and stuff, but that's only like a $10 fee. But if they only brought in 20 gallons, yeah, they're not going to really have any charge, hardly at all. But most trucks are 5,000 gallons, 35 to 5,000 gallons. So.
Okay, and when they're taking this out, does it take one of our people to do that, or is that done by the person that's taking it there?
Yeah. The only thing that our guys would do is troubleshoot some of the equipment that we have out there, like our screener, and we also have to clean that tank every so often. It gets a lot of grit built up in it, but for the most part, it's all self-serve by the haulers.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? What are your wishes, council? I get a motion by Palmquist, second by Pluis.
Approve.
Motion to approve. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 8, consider for confirmation Mayor Zacker's appointments to various committees, commissions, and boards. We have for the Historic Preservation Commission, Sarah Kranz, and Parks and Recreation Commission, Jeff Marutz. What are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
I get a motion by Catna to approve, second by Penscover. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 9, request from Alderman Veneman to take from the table the consideration of ATV UTV ordinances, which may then include consideration of an ATV UTV ordinance to allow ATVs and UTVs to operate on all streets, an ordinance establishing an ATV UTV route on County Highway Z only, and an ordinance prohibiting ATV UTV operation on all city streets, as per attachment 5. Mr. Veneman, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Your Honor. At the January Common Council meeting, the ATV UTV issue was tabled. It seemed like there were concerns that it would come back up after a new council took over after the April election. I know it left many who viewed the meeting confused, wondering where the issue stood. That being said, I felt the need to remove the item from the table and bring it back this evening and hopefully find some final closure. As per tonight's agenda, bringing this back, we could discuss and consider 3 potential ordinances that could result in the following outcomes. 1, ATVs and UTVs are not allowed on any city streets in Wisconsin Rapids. 2, ATVs and UTVs are allowed on all city streets in Wisconsin Rapids, except for state highways. And then 3, ATVs and UTVs are allowed on County Highway Z in Wisconsin Rapids city limits, but no other city streets. The ordinance allowing these on all city streets is basically just another ordinance changed slightly and brought before a different committee in order to ignore the will of the voters who defeated this resoundingly in the November election. I cannot in good conscience support this effort. The ordinance that does not allow the vehicles on all city streets follows the will of the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids. The ordinance allowing these vehicles on the short stretch of Highway Z within the city limits came about so travelers on that highway from neighboring communities where their use is permitted could cross Highway 13. While I still believe ATV use on our city streets has no purpose, and I do not want to go against the will of the voters, I do want to be a good neighbor to our smaller towns, so I believe this ordinance has merit. With that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to allow the use of ATVs and UTVs on Highway Z in Wisconsin Rapids, but prohibits them on all other city streets as per the ordinance in the packet.
So I have a motion by Veneman, second by Pluis. Mrs. Palmquist?
The option to open the section of Griffith, which is within the city limits on County Road Z, adds an additional level of bureaucracy that is unnecessary. and I'm struggling to understand what problem it solves or what benefit that it has. That portion of roadway is currently open to ATV and UTV traffic. Individuals outside of the city and residents of this city can use that road to get to Nepco Lake, Tractor Supply, and other open roads that allow them to access Quick Trip and Walmart. Approving this version of the ordinance creates confusion for operators and law enforcement because they need to determine which set of rules apply based on a convoluted invisible barrier. For example, when traveling to this section of roadway, in either direction, the county ordinance applies. When traveling east on Griffith from Lincoln Street to 9th Street, the city ordinance would apply. And when traveling west on the same road, the Grand Rapids ordinance would apply. Approving this version of the ordinance forces us to spend taxpayer dollars on signs because we are required by state statute to sign the roadway that is open and sign intersecting roadways that are closed. We are not responsible if we do not have an ordinance. Overall, it's not required for us to have an ordinance from the standpoint of law enforcement, as officers can enforce the regulations found in State Statute 2333. It's not required to recuse any liability from incidents on the roadway, and it's not required to preclude us from having to care or maintain that road because it's not ours to maintain. Again, this portion of the roadway is currently open to ATV and UTV traffic. While we have the ability to create an ordinance, we are not required to have one, and I cannot in good conscience support an ordinance that makes this issue far more difficult than it needs to be.
All right, we have a motion by Veneman, seconded by Pluis to have all roads closed in Wisconsin Rapids except for the portion of County Highway Z that we have discussed in the ordinance. Are there any other questions or concerns, comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 5 yeas to 3 nays. Yep. Item 10, consider for approval the actions of the Planning Commission at its meeting held on February 3rd, 2025. Mr. Kearns?
Thank you, Mayor. The Plan Commission met at 4 p.m. on February 3rd. A quorum of members were present. A list of others in attendance is available in the clerk's office or the Community Development Department. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. Item 1 was approval of the report from January 6th. There was a motion by Tao to approve the report, second by Davin. That motion carried 4-0. Item 2 was a request from Fump Star Services LLC, including a public hearing and action to operate a conditional use permit at 321 4th Avenue North for professional services, which falls within the General Industrial M1 District. Staff provided a summary of the request recommending approval. A public hearing opened at 4:04 p.m. Speaking in favor included Andrea and Andy Jensen at 321 4th Avenue North. Speaking against, nobody. That public hearing closed at 4:05 p.m. There was a motion by Davin to approve the request, second by Palmquist, subject to the following condition. Minor modifications to the plan shall be permitted to be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department. That motion carried 4-0. Item 3 was adjournment. There was a motion by Tao to adjourn the meeting, second by Zacher. That motion carried 4-0. The meeting adjourned at 4:06 p.m. With that, I respectfully submit it for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes?
To approve.
Motion by Palmquist, seconded by Katna. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 11, consider for adoption the actions of the standing committees of the Common Council as follows. Item A, Finance and Property Committee held February 4th, 2025. Mr. Catnaw.
Thank you. The Finance and Property Committee met at 5:02 PM on Tuesday, February 4th, in the council chambers at City Hall. Item 1 was called to order. I called the meeting to order at 5:02. Item 2 was consider request from the fire department to adopt a resolution to adjust the ambulance rates. It was moved by Delaney, seconded by Veneman, to approve a resolution to adjust the ambulance rates as presented. Motion carried 3-0. Item 3 was out of the bills. It was moved by Catnaw, seconded by Delaney, to approve checks number 24412 to 24751 in the amount of $7,764,822.59. Motion carried 3-0. Item 4 was set next meeting date. The next regular meeting of the Finance and Property Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Item 5, in open session, the committee may vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, para 1, para E of the Wisconsin statute, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Moved by Veneman, seconded by Delaney to go into closed session. Motion carried 3-0. In closed session, the committee discussed the sale and development of a property on the northwest corner of 25th Avenue South and Alton Street, approximately 8 acres, and will discuss negotiation and strategy regarding the selling of the property in the terms of a development agreement. No action was taken. Item 6, the committee adjourned in closed session. It was moved by Catnaw, seconded by Veneman, and it adjourned at 6:07 p.m. And with that, I submit these minutes for approval.
Got a motion by Catnaw to approve the minutes. Seconded by Palmquist. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item B, Public Works Committee held February 6, 2025. Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee met on Thursday, February 6th at the council chambers at City Hall. All members were present. The meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. First item of business was to review the Engineering and Street Department monthly activity report, and those reports were reviewed. Item 3 was an update on Alderperson Delaney's referral regarding garbage and recycling services for mobile home parks. An update was given, and there was discussion surrounding the options available, which was number 1, do nothing. Number 2, modify the current ordinance to provide services to the other property types. And number 3 was switch garbage recycling services to a fee based on actual costs. The committee requested that this item be brought back next month for committee action with more information on options 2 and 3. Item 4, review and consider the addition of sidewalk along the east side of A Street South between Lakewood Lane and the existing sidewalk at the Wood Trust Bank property as part of the 2028 DOT project. Motion by Palmquist, second by Austin, to approve the addition of sidewalk as part of the upcoming DOT project, and that motion carried. Item 5, discuss on-street diagonal parking situations and policy items. The committee agreed that the city should maintain the on-street parking areas and directed staff to draft a policy including this information for next month, and no motion was made. Item 6, review the referral list, which was reviewed. 7 was set the next meeting date, which will be Thursday, March 6th at 5 p.m., and we adjourned at 6:04 p.m. And with that, that concludes the report of the Public Works Committee.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
I got a motion. Hold on one second. Mr. Delaney?
Okay, so at this, I had to zoom in due to work. And I went back to look at the meeting online, and I had seen that it was a lot like Forrest Gump when he spoke in front of the large crowd. And you can't actually hear it online until it gets to the end where I'm like, and that's all I have to say about that. So I don't know if you guys could hear what I said, but anybody watching online couldn't hear what I said. So I just wanted, and for the council, just to briefly go over the what I had said. So the referral came about due to Judy Whitney had sent in a request for garbage and recycling, and I had put it in to a referral, and then it made its way to this last month's Public Works meeting. There were different options that Paul had described, which I thought he did an excellent job on describing the different options. And as for me, I think the most fair option is the pay for service, which would be taking it out of the tax levy and then billing everybody for the service that they receive. After that, it was questioned about that if we do that, people may think, well, you know, my money's not going towards the library or the Humane Society or whatever else, which is a fair argument. I do understand that. But there are a lot of other communities that do this currently. I think it's the most fair way for people to pay for services instead of being it based on the value of a home or a property, that it would be the service that people are receiving and they are directly paying for that same service, which would come out to about $12 to $13 per month. But it would be taken out of the tax levy at the 2013 rate. So the taxes, so it's not like you're paying an additional $12 or $13 because it is being taken out of your taxes. And what that rate would be, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that it wouldn't be the full $12 to $13 per month. And then it would also help people that need to have another can because they're paying for the service. They can have another can, and those I don't know what else I did say about it. I guess I'll stop there because I can't remember exactly. I just think that's the most fair option, and I think it should be considered by everybody. There's no other service like water or electricity that we would generally just base it off from somebody's house value. That is such a specific service that you pay for it as you use it, or you use it and pay for it. So that's all. Thank you.
I got a motion by Veneman, seconded by Penscover. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Thank you. Item C, Human Resource Committee meeting held on February 4th, 2025. Mr. Delaney.
The Wisconsin Rapids Human Resources Committee met February 4th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. All committee members were present. Also present were Alderperson Veneman, Mayor Zacher, City Attorney Sue Schill, Finance Director Tim DeZorsi, and Human Resources Manager Ryan Hartman. Item 1, discuss a referral from Alderperson Delaney regarding an employee recognition program for employees of the city. Following discussion, it was directed that Human Resources conduct an employee survey to gauge the interest amongst employees for an employee recognition program and report at the March 2025 HR meeting. Item 2, discuss and consider for approval a general wage increase for non-represented employees of the city to be effective January 1st, 2025. Motion by Pluis, second by Pollock, to approve a 3% general wage increase for non-represented employees of the city to be effective January 1st, 2024. Motion carried 2-1. Item 3, committee may vote to go into closed session under Section 19.85, Para 1, Para E, Wisconsin statutes, which reads deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Motion by Delaney, second by Plus to go into closed session. Roll call vote was taken. Motion carried 3-0. In closed session, the committee discussed negotiation and bargaining strategy regarding labor negotiations with WRPPA and IAFF and discussed terms of successor labor agreements with WRPPA and IAFF. Item 4, the committee will adjourn in closed session. The meeting adjourned at 4:56 p.m.
Motion to approve?
So I believe there needs to be a correction to the minutes. They state
Thank
that.
you.
What's that? The minutes state that it was motioned by Pluis, seconded by Pollock to approve a 3% general wage increase for non-represented employees of the city to be effective January 1st, 2024. I believe that's supposed to be 2025.
Good catch. I amend my motion to reflect January 1 of 2025.
All right, so I have the amended motion to approve the minutes by Pluis, seconded by Pollock. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion carries 7 ayes to 1 nay. Item D, Legislative Committee meeting held February 4th, 2025. Mr. Catnaugh.
Thank you. A meeting of the Legislative Committee was held on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. Item 1 was call to order. I called the order to meeting at 6:11 p.m. as finance went over. All members were present. Item 2, discuss a referral from Alderperson Catnaugh to create an ordinance banning the addition of fluoride to the city water supply. Motion by Delaney, second by Catnaugh to have the city attorney draft an ordinance prohibiting the addition of fluoride into the city's water supply to be considered by the Common Council. Motion carried 2-1 with Austin voting in the negative. Item 3, discuss a referral from Alderperson Palmquist regarding revisions to Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code in relations to 25.01, 25.02, 25.03, 25.04, and 25.05. Motion by Delaney, second by Austin to direct the city attorney to make revisions as requested by Alderpersons Delaney and Palmquist, along with revisions necessary after speaking with Wood County regarding animal enforcement, and to bring a draft ordinance back to the Legislative Committee. Motion carried 3-0. Item 4, discuss a referral from Alderperson Pensacola to increase the terms of alderpersons and the mayor from 2 years to 4 years. Motion by Austin, second by Delaney to have the city attorney draft a charter ordinance to increase the mayor's term of office from 2 years to 4 years, effective with the spring 2026 election to be considered by the Common Council. Motion carried 2-1 with Catnaugh voting in the negative. Item 5, discuss a referral from Alderperson Catnaugh to create or modify city ordinances regarding block parties and special events. Motion by Catnaugh, second by Delaney to direct the city attorney to draft an ordinance creating a residential block party permit using ordinances from Onalaska, La Crosse, Sheboygan, and Waukesha as a guide, and to bring the draft ordinance back to the Legislative Committee. Motion carried 3-0. Item 6, motion by Austin, second by Delaney to adjourn. Motion carried 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 8:08 p.m. I would like to hold out items 2 and 4 and motion to submit the rest for approval.
All right. Good. I got a motion by Catnaugh to approve the remainder of the minutes, holding out items 2 and 4. Mr. Delaney?
Okay, during this meeting, I had said something that was rude and uncalled for. There's times that I would like to take my words back and like press rewind and then mute. I'm sure all of you would like me to be able to have a mute button for me as well. But what I said was towards another elected official, and was unprofessional. And instead of going into any reasons why I did that, I just want to apologize. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
I'd like to talk to item number 1, or number 2,
It's being held out.
being held up.
Okay, so I do have a second by Veneman to, for the remainder of minutes, holding out item 2 and 4. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Austin?
I would like to recognize Elizabeth Whalen to speak.
Is this, I think we're. Oh, okay. All right, thanks. Go ahead. Thank you. Please state your name and address as always. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Sure. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Whalen. My address is 211 15th Avenue North, Wisconsin Rapids. You guys did a lot at that legislative committee. It was a long YouTube video, by the way. And thank you for all your work on that. The thing that I wanted to especially draw your attention to was the amendment to the dog and cat regulations. And Ms. Schell, I appreciate all the work that you must have put in on revising the language on that.
That was Miss Palmquist that did that.
And you as well. And one of the things that I wanted to point out was that for no apparent reason, we have a maximum number of dogs and cats that are allowed to be held as in households at 2. And that seems like a very arbitrary number. As a pet professional, I run a pet sitting business in town for almost 30 years now. And I can tell you that a lot of people would like to have more than 2 pets, cats or dogs, in their house without having to have the bother of having a city inspector come to their home or the Humane Society come to their home. Most everybody takes exceptional care of their pets. I think if you get up to the point where you have 5 or 6 pets, that might make sense, but I would change it to 4 is what I would do. I've only had one client who actually had the exemption permit. They had like 12 cats. And of course they took exceptional care of them. So I would like to see that changed in there. And I do appreciate the language being changed to having not allowing cats to be at large as well. So that is considering the number of predations that have been, for birds and stuff, that makes a big difference for us for Bird City. So, and any questions? That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Palmquist?
Because this is being revised and going back to the legislative committee, is this just an item that we take up when it comes back, or is taken up by the legislative committee? Great.
Right.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right. Thank you. So we still have a motion on the table and a second to pass the remainder of the minutes, holding out items 2 and 4. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Taking up item 2, Mr. Katna.
Thank you. So as we continue the discussion on the presence of fluoride in our city's water supply, I want to focus on 2 critical pieces of information that demand our attention. The United States Health and Human Services study from August, which you all have in your packets, reveals a concerning inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and IQ. This means that as fluoride exposure increases, IQ tends to decrease. The study demonstrates that fluoride in water is associated with IQ loss, and the degree of that impact varies depending on the amount consumed. This inverse correlation raises serious questions about the long-term effects of fluoridation, even at the 0.7 parts per million that was previously considered safe. This concern is further amplified by a federal court ruling in September by U.S. District Judge Edward Chen, who ruled that the EPA must reconsider its stance on fluoride in drinking water at current levels, citing concerns over its potential risks to children's neurodevelopment. We also need to recognize that not all fluoride compounds are the same. The fluoride added to our water is not the same as what's in toothpaste. Most municipal water systems use fluorosilicic acid, an industrial byproduct, rather than pharmaceutical grade fluoride. Additionally, I want to highlight that this is not an issue being brought up out of nowhere, nor is it part of some national political agenda, as some have suggested. Cities and towns across the country have been making this same decision for years. In Wisconsin alone, over 80 municipalities have removed fluoride from their water supply, and a quarter of those have done so since 2020. Finally, this discussion comes down to individual choice. People who want fluoride have access to it through toothpaste and other dental products, but those who prefer to avoid it don't have that option when it's in the water supply.
Thank you, Mr. Veneman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I'd like to clarify my stance on adding fluoride to the city water supply. First of all, I've had many opinions and reports from people in the medical field, non-medical field, and citizens opposed to ending fluoridation. I've also received numerous opinions from citizens with an opposing viewpoint, albeit a very small percentage in comparison. I've done my own research to learn more and have found reasons to support both stances. As a general philosophy, I do not support government agencies putting any chemicals in anything I consume without my consent, and I use fluoride-free toothpaste and do not willingly add fluoride to my diet other than drinking it in my tap water. That being said, I am a true believer in representative democracy, and I represent a constituency that does not share my views on fluoride by an enormous margin. With that in mind, I will follow the wishes of my constituents and will not support the removal of fluoride from our drinking water.
Thank you, Mr. Pluis.
I'd also like to be clear that I do not support the removal of fluoride from our municipal water system either. Fluoride has been proven a public health measure since 1950s, backed by science. But beyond that, I feel that this issue should have gone forth the Public Works Committee, because our municipal code clearly states that water-related matters fall under the jurisdiction of Public Works. So we, as representatives of the city of Wisconsin, of the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids, have a duty to focus on what truly matters to our community. And let me be clear, this is not it. We should be spending our time bringing jobs to Wisconsin Rapids, creating a business-friendly environment that attracts entrepreneurs, improving our infrastructure and our public safety. Instead, we are debating whether or not to remove a longstanding, scientifically supported public health measure because of a handful of debunked studies and internet conspiracy theories. Rumors about fluoride date back to the 1960s, when the conservative group, the John Birch Society, suggested it was a communist plot. This discussion is not just embarrassing, it's a waste of our time and an insult to our community. I visited the websites where some of this information that was mentioned earlier for the support of the removal of fluoride, the Fluoride Action Network. And if you visit their site, there's a big Donate Now button at the top of their page. With the advertisement, it states if you donate $75, you'll get a free thumb drive with information against fluoride. And what really gets me is that these people that profit from this kind of misinformation, none of them are at the bedside of the children when they're getting a dental procedure for extensive tooth decay, or an extraction, or full mouth reconstruction in the operating room. They're not there to deal with that. The healthcare professionals, the dental professionals, they are. And that's the reason why you should listen to the dental and health professionals. So let me be clear, I have also received a handful of emails in favor of removing fluoride. But overwhelmingly, I've received far more emails explaining why fluoride should stay. But when I'm out in the community and talking to citizens face to face, they're not just opposed to removing fluoride, they're angry that we're debating this instead of focusing on how to grow Wisconsin Rapids. They want elected leaders to focus on their jobs, economic growth, and making Wisconsin Rapids a more attractive place to live and work. Instead, we are engaging in a circus that makes us look like a city where businesses and families would think twice before moving here. So let me be also clear that this research being used to justify this, the studies cited by the chair of the legislative committee, are considered weak and flawed by actual experts. The 2016 Mexican study reported an association between maternal urinary fluoride levels and child cognitive development. The authors themselves cautioned that further research was needed. Experts note that the association is not causative, and there were important limitations to the study, such as conducting IQ tests on 3 and 4-year-olds. This should question if the test can be reliable because most children at that age cannot read. So, meanwhile, countless peer-reviewed studies backed by leading medical and dental professionals have shown time and again that fluoride in our water is safe, effective, and crucial for public health. The American Dental Association, the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, and nearly every respected medical body in the world stand behind fluoridation. These experts have spent their entire lives dedicated to dental and public health. The risk of removing fluoride is too great, especially for our children. The dental health impacts overall, school performance, and long-term well-being. Are we really willing to gamble with that? So let's do the responsible thing. Let's pause this nonsense and get back to what actually matters to the people of Wisconsin Rapids. We have an obligation to lead with facts, not fear, with science and not speculation, and with integrity and not political theater. I will not support this measure, and I urge my fellow council members to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Palmquist?
The decision made by the majority of the legislative committee to remove fluoride from our drinking water was one made out of fear and skepticism. It was a decision that cited distorted data, Google searches, personal feelings, YouTube videos, and controversial studies which literally state they have no conclusive evidence to support that optimally fluorinated water is harmful or has negative associations. These are studies that are backed by fear-mongering media sources seeking clicks and individuals with little to no expertise in public health or public health safety. It was a decision that is not backed by 80 years worth of legitimate, validated research. That's 80 years of exposure, resulting in studies that are supported by 125 national and international organizations. We're real people who have a vested interest in public health, as well as the degrees and certifications that attest to their expertise, come together to provide recommendations that assure our health and safety. Their research shows that the minimal food-grade material that is added to our water has successfully reduced cavities, tooth decay, dental health disparities, and protects millions of Americans from the systemic health issues that arise from poor dental health. Their research has never claimed a zero-risk solution to any public health measure, and it is all conducted knowing that omitting results, manipulating materials, or falsifying data results in fines, the loss of funding, and imprisonment. It was a decision that will have a negative impact, particularly on the 14% of our community who is living in poverty. It will negatively impact our workforce as adults with untreated cavities lose 164 million work hours each year. It will negatively impact our healthcare system as those who don't have access to dental care often end up in the emergency room. It will further strain our dentists and our oral health care providers who already have extensive waiting lists and may not be accepting new patients with Medicaid. And ironically, it will likely impact the children of our community, as school attendance is linked to having a higher IQ, and untreated cavities cause children to miss approximately 54 million school hours each year. It was a decision that was wrong. By trusting the epidemiological evidence, we provide our residents with public health policy that is legitimate and validated. That is what they deserve. My motion is to reject the current recommendation and to direct staff to document within our municipal code that waterworks and lighting will follow the federal standards and Wisconsin Administrative Code for fluorinating our water.
Could you please restate your motion in the positive, please, Ms. Palmquist?
Of course. In the positive, to direct staff to document within our municipal code that waterworks and lighting will follow the federal standards and Wisconsin Administrative Code for fluorinating our water. Of course.
Thank you. Mr. Catna?
Thank you. Just wanted to address some things that were said, including the clown show comment. Okay, so the study that was referenced that is in the packet is from the United States Health and Human Services. The federal government agency did this study and put out these findings. In September, I'm looking at it right now, September 24th of 2024, the ruling out of the United States District Court of Northern California, again, Judge Chen, ruled that the EPA must reconsider its stance on fluoride in drinking water at current levels. Conspiracy from the federal government putting out the report and a federal court that has a standing ruling on this? I mean, come on. I understand that there's this fluoride response team that, I'll explain this to you. The night the agenda went out, they scanned the entire internet every night and picked this up off a PDF, and immediately we got emails the next day. There's big money behind this. They'd spend a lot of money to put out information that some of what's just said, and we talk about ignoring, their studies or other studies, but these are a recent study published by the federal government in August, a court ruling from September. That's why it was brought to the Legislative Committee for consideration. This is not out of left field or some type of crazy thing. This trial in the Northern District of California went through 7 years of litigation and had a 2-week trial. So this is not just coming from some internet theory. I'm happy to put this ruling. I'll send it to the clerk's office to be put on file if anybody would like to read it, but that is out there, and that is where it currently stands with the study that was done by the federal government and the ruling that was made in federal court.
Thank you. I do have the motion by Ms. Palmquist, and then seconded by Mr. Austin, and then I have Ms. Palmquist to speak again.
Super quick. I don't ignore the studies that are out there or the rulings from the federal court. What this motion does is put the control of fluorinating our water with Waterworks and Lighting. It does not specify how much or how little they will fluorinate the water. So if at any point in time the validated research shows that we should have a 0.3 or a 0, this motion allows that to automatically change. We don't have to come back and try to debate what level that is. So if the federal government decides that we do not add any fluoride to our water, then Waterworks and Lighting no longer adds any fluoride to our water.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney?
I'd just like to say I'm not an expert on this at all. As with most things, I'm not an expert on. But what I have not seen any YouTube videos on this. But what I would say is, I take that back. I might have seen some news reports on YouTube. I bet you're right. So what I would like to say is there's a lot of people out on the countryside outside of city limits that don't have fluorinated water, and I really don't see them having such a huge problem with cavities. I mean, if it was so big, why wouldn't they be required to fluorinate their wells? The people that had also were pro-fluoride, they had also talked about the risk, just as Mrs. Palmquist and Mr. Penscover had said. And they had both said that there is a risk, which there is a risk. When I went to high school here in Wisconsin Rapids, I was dating a girl that had brown spots on her teeth, and she was very pretty. And I was like, well, what's that all about? She's like, well, my dentist says that it's from too much fluoride. So, I mean, at some point, obviously, she had been exposed to too much fluoride. Everybody is different. Every body is different. Every individual is different, and they react differently to different things. So it just comes down for me to the risk versus reward. And I am yet convinced that the risk of taking it out is worth the reward that has been suggested. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catnap.
Yeah, I don't understand what we're voting on here. There's no ordinance for consideration that was made in that motion. So what, Attorney Schill, could you explain to me exactly what we're doing with this motion here?
So it's basically to reject the proposed ordinance and direct staff to document within our municipal code that Waterworks and Lighting Commission will follow the federal standards and Wisconsin Administrative Code for fluoridating our water. Is that?
So currently we just have Water and Light have autonomy in that decision, and now we're saying we're going to give it to the state? Is that what the motion is?
No. In March of 1950, the council directed Water and Light to add fluoride to the water. So that is the status quo right now.
But not the amount.
Well, I think if you add fluoride, there are levels, state levels that you have to follow. It has to be between 6 and 0.8. So it is controlled if you fluoridate or fluoride or whatever the word would be. Yes.
So what's changing?
Well, I guess when it says document within our municipal code, I guess I'm not, would that be an ordinance that you?
Correct.
Okay.
You just said it was documented.
It's documented by way of a resolution from March of 1950.
So is this an ordinance or just?
Well, something in our municipal code would be an ordinance, yes.
So we're creating a new ordinance through this motion without seeing the ordinance?
Well, I think it probably would need to come back because the ordinance is in front of you.
So Ms. Palmquist's motion would have to be written into an ordinance and then come back?
If the intent is to have an ordinance that directs Water and Light to put fluoride in the water. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. We currently have the resolution that says so. But I would, just the same as I've recommended an ordinance rather than a simple resolution, if you wanted to prohibit fluoride from being added, I don't think it's a bad idea to have an ordinance that specifically directs the fluoridation of the water. I actually had at one point prepared an ordinance that did that same thing, but then in conversation with Water and Light, we didn't want to, this is going to sound good, we didn't want to confuse anyone on it, and we thought that this ordinance up or down would take care of it. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with an ordinance to not approve the ordinance. I mean, you said it had to be an affirmative. I don't necessarily agree with that. Or someone can just make the motion to approve, and if it's denied, it's denied. And then if you want to do a follow-up to memorialize the resolution or put the resolution into an ordinance form, that can be done. And then the ordinance would be defeated still today, though, on the prohibiting fluoride.
So no action could have been taken, and it could have just stayed with Water and Light doing what they're doing now, but we're going to add additional language.
Well, I think that's her request, yes.
Okay.
Ms.
So it's to draft an ordinance that says that.
Correct.
Yes.
So if it passes to draft the ordinance, you still have to bring the ordinance back.
Yes.
I still have to go around with the aldermen, and now we'll open up the floor if the aldermen choose to. Thank you very much. Ms. Palmquist?
Just want to clarify, did not specify a level within the ordinance that will be drafted because the federal standards and federal standards dictate the level, and the Wisconsin Administrative Code reinforces that and then adds additional procedures on how that is done. The federal government has also been required to assess the standards for our drinking water every 6 years since 1974. It happens more frequently, but that way it allows us to automatically decrease that level, and anyone curious about if we fluorinate our water or not will be able to find it within our municipal code.
Mr. Catna?
Sorry, but putting into the code that it's in resolution form right now, so I guess putting it into the code is just a formality of some sort, but I don't understand why we add anything outside of what we're already doing in the event that the federal government or the state did come through and say that they advise we do not fluoridate our water any longer. We have an ordinance on the books that says that we do. So at that point, that's why I don't know why we would need it there.
Well, I'm not sure what the ordinance is going to say. It may very well say, and you're going to have to decide what that says when you vote on it, but it could very well say it would be consistent with federal and state guidelines. So if those change, then the levels may change, or whether to even fluorinate the water might change.
Okay. So I have a motion, and I have a second. We have all had a chance to speak. At this point, there's a few people in the audience that would like to speak, so I'd like an alderman to open up the floor, or I can open up the floor. I'm going to give 3 minutes if we do it.
Time. The motion is to reject the current recommendation, which I take it is the ordinance that's in front of you, and direct staff to document within our municipal code that waterworks and lighting will follow the federal standards, Wisconsin Administrative Code for fluoridating our water.
All right. So at this point, we are not yielding time, and we can put this right to a vote. If there's no further, Mr. Delaney?
Hey, I'd like to yield time to anybody that's come down here on this cold evening to
right.
Wisconsin Rapids to speak about fluoridated water on either side.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, come to the microphone. Please state your name and address. And we do have a 3-minute timer that's going. I'll just kind of, without being too rude, kind of let you know when it's coming. Thanks.
It's not necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, what's the cost to Wisconsin Rapids citizens, taxpayers, to fluoridate our water? Does anyone know? You do?
Go ahead.
All right, Todd Weiler, General Manager, Water and Light, 4464 Offerman Heights, Wisconsin Rapids. There were a lot of items already covered that I was going to cover. So on the cost, I noticed in the legislative committee meeting, somebody did ask that. So the cost is $1.44 per year per meter. So in other words, 12 cents a month per meter. So in other words, if you have 3 people that live in a house,
12 cents divided by 3, 4 cents per person per month. Now, the other question that got asked that meeting was, how much would it cost for somebody to buy the supplement tablets and take them? And what I found with the research is $6 a month per person. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's interesting. Fairly cheap to get rid of a toxic byproduct. It's been said that we can buy bottled water. We put a reverse osmosis in our home. Poor people can't do that. And poor people can't buy bottled water. It's kind of a affront to them. What if they don't want fluoride either? You're speaking for a lot of people that haven't, you don't really know what they're thinking. They might not want it. So to say that, we're doing this for the poor, they can't afford the bottled water, they can't afford reverse osmosis. A lot of back and forth experts, on and on and on. We learned about experts during COVID, big time. If you had your eyes opened, you know what I'm talking about. The mandates were worthless. The school children suffered. So we're going to do it again. You guys are going to go with your experts, you ignore the other experts. So in that, I'm saying, I am opposed to supplementing fluoride. This is a personal choice. I am opposed to the mass drugging of a population, and that's what it is. It's hard to give personal consent to something added to the common water supply. I do not give my consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
William Akey, 511 Ash Street, Wisconsin Rapids. I'm a general dentist in Wisconsin Rapids for over 30 years. The dental profession enjoys a special position within society. We have earned a very trusted position within society that we take very seriously. We're given certain privileges by society, and that's through our license to practice. In return, the profession then makes a commitment to members of the society and to society at large to hold ourselves to high ethical standards. So anytime a question about oral health comes forth, we always fall back to our 5 principles. And I'm not going to bore you with a long dissertation, I'll keep it as short as I can. But the 5 basic principles that we support are beneficence, non-maleficence, veracity, patient autonomy, and justice. Community water fluoridation at the optimal level of 0.7 parts per million being applied to these principles are, for me as an individual and collectively as our profession, to endorse this public health strategy. The first principles of beneficence, which is do good, non-maleficence, to do no harm, and veracity, which is truthfulness. We see dozens of studies over several decades that have repeatedly demonstrated the safety and efficacy of community water fluoridation at the level utilized in Wisconsin Rapids. There are no studies in any community water system at our level of fluoride to refute this. Over 72% of the U.S. population enjoys the benefits of optimized community water fluoridation. The remaining 2 principles, which are patient autonomy and justice, find each other at odds when it comes to this question of community water fluoridation. Patient autonomy works very well one-on-one with my patients. Give them the information, give them the options, what are the pros and cons, the risks and benefits. Let them choose, so long as they don't violate other principles like doing good or not doing harm. Justice, on the other hand, then focuses on providing opportunities to all members of society, regardless of socioeconomic status or any other parameter. Community water fluoride provides justice demonstrated by data showing 25% reduction in caries rates. This effect can only be accomplished when the child or the infant or even the fetus in mom's uterus is receiving fluoride while teeth are being developed. Toothpaste doesn't touch developing teeth. They're lodged in the 2 jaws during development. And don't forget, fluoride also increases the strength of bones. It is not just about teeth. Having said all this and looking at the 5 standards that we uphold to ourselves and feel is our responsibility as a society, we see that we have 4 principles that are strongly supporting community water fluoridation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes.
Kevin Fangman, 710 3rd Street South, and I'm also one of the commissioners for Water and Lighting. There's a lot in this information that's here that's grossly incorrect. I'm going to take out one example to point that out. If you look at the 2017 notation, it says a National Institute of Health, NIH funded study. That means it was funded by the NIH. It was not conducted by the NIH. This study found that every milligram per liter, which is about 50% more than what we add to the water, increase of fluoride in a pregnant woman's urine. Let's stop there. Part of the fluoride that you ingest goes into your body, goes into your teeth, goes into your bones. So we're talking about the residual fluoride being more than 50% what is recommended by the EPA. This is exactly why you do not pay attention to these things. We discussed the idea of the professionals. I heard from the council, okay? No one at Water and Lighting was consulted. No one was asked about the price. You have these people here at your disposal. You also had here on February 4th a member of the ADA who spoke about well water, that in Wood County, okay, they have tested wells where the natural fluoride is 3 parts per million. That is toxic, okay? You have to pay attention to what the professionals say. Ask your people at Water and Lighting. Ask your dentist. Ask your medical professionals. They will all tell you the same thing. We have 80 years of studies that were actually conducted by Health and Human Services, conducted by the American Dental Association, conducted by the AMA, and every single one of those studies says that in the proper quantity, fluoride is beneficial and not detrimental. And one more point, anything that's good in too much quantity is not good. We talked about in this document here where it talked about increasing the fluoride 50% over the standard. Do you realize that if you had an oxygen level 50% over normal, you would develop toxicity and damage to your lungs? You could have a healthy diet, the correct foods, but if you ate 50% more than what you're supposed to, you would become obese and develop health issues from that. Anything that you ingest in your body beyond what is recommended can be harmful. So when you look at these studies, make sure you pay attention to 0.6 to 0.8. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hello.
Audrey Day, 1621 30th Street North, Wisconsin Rapids. But I know I shared a little bit about my personal journey before, but I'm actually going to share some information from the Wood County Health Department since many of them are out sick right now. So you may have heard the term artificial fluoridation to imply that the process of water fluoridation is unnatural and that it delivers a foreign substance into the water supply when, in fact, all water sources contain some fluoride. The fluoride ion released in water is the same regardless of the source and is processed by the body in the same way regardless of the source. Community water fluoridation is a natural way to improve oral health. Like vitamins, fluoride is beneficial at the proper levels and necessary for our health. It is essential for dental health, especially in preventing tooth decay. Like other nutrients and vitamins, fluoride is effective and beneficial at the proper therapeutic levels, but too much can lead to undesirable effects, as he was saying. For example, vitamin D is added to milk, folic acid is added to grain products, and calcium is added to orange juice. Vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption, but too much can lead to calcium buildup in the blood, causing damage to bones, kidneys, and the heart. If consumed at levels far above the optimal range, fluoride can also have adverse effects. At the proper level of 0.7 milligrams per liter, fluoride is safe and beneficial, much like vitamin D at its recommended intake. Fluoride in drinking water is carefully regulated to ensure it stays within a safe therapeutic level. Almost 80 years of scientific research has demonstrated that fluoride at the recommended levels is safe and effective in the water. Numerous studies have shown that water fluoridation does not lead to harmful side effects when maintained at the recommended levels. The studies being discussed here discuss levels higher than the recommended 0.7 milligrams per liter amount, as said before, and fluoride does not accumulate to harmful levels under normal intake conditions, as the balance between intake, storage, and excretion prevents toxicity. Fluoridation is one of the few public health measures that benefits all segments of the population equally, regardless of income, education, or access to dental care. Everyone in the community benefits from water fluoridation. There is no other cost-effective way to add fluoride to the water. Topical applications such as fluoride varnishes and mouthwashes work in a different way than systemic applications like fluoride tablets and community water fluoridation, but they work best when they're combined. Using only fluoride toothpaste and topical products are not enough to reach optimal levels of fluoride. Am I done? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Cronstead. My address is 1530 Washington Street of Wisconsin Rapids. I am a nurse that has worked in the operating room, as well as currently I work in a dental facility. I wanted to discuss with you my insights as working in these fields. Currently, at this time, we have significant wait lists for anyone that wants to be seen, especially anyone that is in a position where they're utilizing no insurance or Medicaid insurance. If you think that trying to buy a bottled water is really expensive, trying to afford care to take care of your teeth is even more expensive. In addition, the research study that was highlighted from the National Toxicity Program does give a comprehensive evaluation of the use of fluoride and the potential impact on neural development and cognition, aimed to determine the validity of fluoride exposure throughout the lifespan. They concluded with moderate confidence that higher levels of fluoride exposure that occurs specifically in drinking water that contains more than 1.5 milligrams per liter is associated with lower IQ levels in children. This data was used from countries such as China, Canada, India, Iran, Pakistan, and Mexico, where the exposure to fluoride levels normally exceed 1.5 milligrams. Because of the region, there is natural fluoride minerals in their water that's already there. So the addition of more fluoride is what was used to create this, this understanding that fluoride can cause IQ issues. However, in the United States, we do have standards of fluoride that is greatly below the 1.5 milligram liters that was seen in other countries. In addition, they found no data that implicated that fluoride exposure from water supplies has any cognitive impacts on adults. The biases and credibility of the NTP assessment underwent rigorous scientific evaluation with peer reviews from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, as well as subject matter experts and federal agencies. Considering the geographic considerations of the data linking the higher fluoride exposure to lower IQ in children did originate outside the United States, where environmental and dietary factors may differ. In order for us to be able to create a relationship between fluoride exposure over the 1.5 milliliters compared to the 0.7, that is the standard in the United States, we would have to make some different changes in order, oops, sorry. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Sydney Ressler. I live at 510 15th Street South, and I'm also here to talk on the behalf of the Wood County Health Department. I wanted to address some of the concerns that were brought up during the legislative committee meeting. One question that was raised was about total accumulation of fluoride in the body and whether it exceeds the recommended 0.7 milligrams per liter threshold. After fluoride enters the body, about half of it leaves through urine, usually within 24 hours of consumption. The other half is absorbed and stored in the bones. That stored fluoride is released back into the blood for the body to use when fluoride levels fall. This absorption and release cycle continues throughout life. So to reiterate, under normal intake conditions, fluoride does not accumulate to harmful levels as the balance between intake, storage, and excretion prevents toxicity. Studies confirm that fluoride metabolism is effective and protective, with no evidence of harmful accumulation in individuals exposed to optimal fluoride levels, which are overseen by regulatory agencies. You cannot buy fluoride tablets over the counter. You need a prescription from a dentist, and it is only prescribed to children. Not everyone can go to the dentist and get a prescription for fluoride tablets, and many parents forget to give it to their children every day. The bottom line is that ending community water fluoridation will have a significant negative impact on the most vulnerable populations, including people with no or low income, people with no dental insurance or who have limited insurance, people with disabilities, children, seniors, people with additional healthcare needs, and so many more. There is a lack of evidence to show that fluoride consumed at this concentration can accumulate to harmful levels, leaving us to only benefit from community water fluoridation. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amanda Fawning, and I'm at 1420 23rd Street North. And I just wanted to point out that the study being referenced, in their analysis, it states that 22 of these studies were rated as high quality, and 52 were rated as low quality. So 70% of the studies being referenced had a high risk of bias. So that's something to take into account when looking at it. I also wanted to point out the Medicaid use in Wisconsin is 18%, and we just lost our public health clinic. So a lot of these patients don't have anywhere to go. I see it all the time. I'm a dental hygienist here. And 7% of people living in Wisconsin also are uninsured. So it's hard for some of these people to find dental care. So water fluoridation is a really positive way to help those people. One argument I hear a lot is that, well, Europe doesn't fluoridate their water, but there are places in Europe that do fluoridate their water, their milk, and their salt. So there are multiple countries that also use fluoridation as a way to combat dental decay. So I really hope you guys consider keeping the fluoride around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Alan Glinsky. I live at 3430 15th Street South, Wisconsin Rapids. Listened to all of the experts, listened and looked at some of the reports, and I said, okay, now what is the final outcome of taking fluorine out of our water? If we make that decision right now, our residents will have more dental problems. Absolutely, it's just going to happen. From all the facts, that's a fact. All this other stuff is there. The additional problems will result in more cost. For a guy who's getting to be my age and seeing what happens to my costs when you suddenly have a capping or a bunch of cavities that show up, these things there'll be more of them, and they'll be more expensive. It's a net effect of what we're doing. And I've heard again many times from folks here that lower income people will really be hurting because they don't have a doctor that they go and they get pills from, and they don't have the money to pay for these things. maybe they can find it somehow or other, but it's going to be, they will suffer the most. And they have enough trouble. They don't need more from us. The next one, again, being my age, I start hearing about determining the density of your bones. As you get older, you get more brittle. If you take fluorine out, they will get more brittle, more brittle, and faster. I don't need that. When you fall when you're 90 years old or you're 75 years old, they break, and they break more often when you're older and you have that. Okay, so anyway, I believe that the dental and bone problems that will result from taking the fluoride out of our water will have pain costs, and we don't need those kind of costs. The levels that we use are perfectly all right. From as many studies as I don't study a lot of them because it's not my forte, but you know, it will have adverse effects for our citizens in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you, everybody, for your comments. Coming back to the council. So he's off. All right. So we have the motion on the table by Palmquist, second by Austin. Any further comments from the council? Seeing.
Right.
To turn down the current recommendation and,
Yep.
yes.
Mr. Pollack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we voting on the ordinance that's in the packet? Oh, you handed on.
Right. I would rather have an ordinance, a motion that someone asks at the minute.
That's why I said, that's why I said that.
Yeah, well, we don't have that motion. So
Right.
I don't know.
So, instead of rejecting, the motion is to do a different ordinance. So, in essence, it's rejecting, but you're voting on drafting a new ordinance. Can I explain it that way? Is that clearer? Okay. Right.
Jennifer, go ahead.
I just want to clarify that the motion is not to adopt the ordinance in the packet. The motion is to draft a new ordinance saying that we will, that the city will follow I don't have it in front of me, the federal and state recommendations. So we're not, the motion is not to approve the one in the packet. It's to draft a new one. Make sense, everybody?
Well, but the first part of the motion was to not approve the recommendation.
Well, by having a new ordinance, you're not approving that ordinance.
Okay, I thought that her motion said to not adopt the proposed ordinance.
It did. You're right.
Okay. So.
But to clarify, we're not voting to approve that ordinance. We're voting to draft a new ordinance.
Right, to reject that ordinance.
Yes, right.
And have a new one, yes.
Right. Makes sense, everyone?
Mm-hmm. So you vote yes if you want to continue fluorinating the water.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. Everybody's on the same page? Thank you. All right, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 6 ayes to 2 nays. Okay. Moving on to item 4, Mr. Catna.
Almost forgot about item 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has been 4 years now that you've been.
Yeah,
in office.
it's been a bit since we pulled this one up. So this was a referral from Alderperson Pensacola to increase the terms of an alderperson and the mayor from 2 years to 4 years. Nothing was addressed in terms of the alderperson term. However, it did pass the legislative committee to increase the mayor's term from 2 to 4 years, effective with the 2026 spring election. I voted against that at committee level, and if you weren't there, you didn't watch, I'll just talk to what I said there. I think I do agree that 2 years is too short of a term. I don't think you want the leader of your city and with the election cycle to be constantly up for election. I don't think they would make the best decisions in the interest of the residents if they're constantly having to go through that cycle of taking out papers and getting on the ballot, and that's a 4 or 5 month process, and then eventually maybe continuing on, or we get someone new. But I think 4 years is too long. I think that's too long. I think if 4 years, if the residents vote someone in and they find out 6 months, a year in, that this mayor is not what they thought they were, they got to wait a whole nother 3 years. So I think somewhere in the middle is the right amount, and that's where I'm at, which is 3 years. So if there's not a motion tonight to make it 3 years, then I'm going to vote no and keep it at 2, because 4 is too long.
Thank you, Ms. Palmquist.
I completely agree that 2 years is too short. I am not opposed to 3 years. I think we're all on the same page that we need more than 2. However, I don't think that 4 years is too long. If there is someone in office that is terrible, after 6 months, the council has the authority to vote out the mayor from office. I think 3 years is a good amount of time for any individual who is retired or has the luxury of owning their own business and can step away from that. 4 years is a little more enticing for a professional or somebody who would need to reapply for a job to be able to take it, which is why I continue to support 4 years instead of 3.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney.
So I would like to see some action on this, either 3 or 4 years. This has come up in the past. It's never passed because we need 6 votes to pass it. I think everybody here agrees that it should be longer than 2 years. So 3 years makes it, that was an idea by an ex-council member Kellogg, that it would help with the rotation of the council members, so that if any of the council members wanted to be mayor, they wouldn't be seeking election during their term. So I think we should do something. I'm up for either one, 3 or 4, and I have no preference with either. So, but I really do think that we should make a decision here tonight and put this one to bed.
Thank you. Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mayor. Since Legislative Committee, I've thought about this as well, and I was the one that put the 4 years up, but I also agree 3 years is a little bit more attractive, partially to the point that Mr. Delaney was making. It also gives the opportunity to have the mayor run every other term in a different district voting, so odds and evens. So it's something that you don't see now. Typically the mayor is with the even terms. Odd terms never see a mayor, which, you know, in my mind brings maybe more constituents out to vote. So I think that would be a positive as well. So I'm going to motion to increase the term for Wisconsin Rapids mayor to 3 years.
I get a motion by Austin to increase the mayor's term to 3 years. And I got it seconded by Penskover. Okay.
Mayor,
so-
I'll amend my motion to include drafting an ordinance and bringing it back to council for approval.
All right. So I have amended motion by Austin to draft an ordinance to bring back to council to change the mayor's term to 3 years. Beginning in 26.
Right. It
Um,
can't start now
Yeah.
until the next term.
I agree. Or I just wanted to state for the record that I still say it should start after I'm done being mayor, even though that's probably not realistic. I'm just saying it for my own benefit, just so you know.
Oh, I see.
So everybody understands that I'm not the one in, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm glad it's not me breaking the tie on this one, because that would be weird. All right, so Mr. Penscover, are you agreed with the amended motion? Okay. So any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and pass your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 12, reports of other committees, commissions, boards, and departments are on record. Please read them if you haven't already. Item 13, referrals to committees. There are no referrals at this time to any committees. And item 14, adjournment. What are your wishes? I got a motion by Austin, seconded by Pluis to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 8 to 0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.